In today's video, we make a return to the aviation format, continuing our look at underappreciated Great War aircraft with one of the lesser-known Sopwith fighters, one that's not well known despite a very large production run, that being the Sopwith Dolphin. This fighter arrived on the Western Front in early 1918, where it would support the far more famous Camel, and from all accounts, the Dolphin was an excellent aircraft. Maneuverable, easy to handle, and quite potent in the right hands. When, of course, it had a working engine, the Achilles heel of more than one Great War design. Unfortunately for the Dolphin, it was very much a case of too late to the action. While quite successful for the few months it had in service, the aircraft was retired shortly after the war ended, leading to the Dolphin being largely forgotten in comparison to the Camel or Pup. Let's change that with this video. Although, before we get to that, I've wanted to return to aviation videos for a while now, but haven't had the time or energy. For now, I've managed to at least make the time. I'll leave these to Saturday extras for now to try and juice the algorithm. I know they won't be hugely popular, so best to not use them on the usual days. At least until the algorithm realizes, hey, these are similar enough, let's push them too. Anyway, with that disclaimer out of the way, back to the video. And the best place to begin in that regard is the most distinctive feature of the Dolphin's design. When you look at this plane, you might be forgiven for going, wait, that's a Sopwith design? At least if you're at all familiar with Great War fighters. However, in early 1917, Sopwith's chief designer decided to go a different route. Herbert Smith developed a new fighter based around two distinctive features. The first was, of course, the more visually distinctive. You see, Sopwith planes had traditionally used rotary engines, giving them the flat and rounded front view. The Dolphin, on the other hand, would change to an inline engine, specifically a French design, but we'll return to that later. That engine gave the plane a very distinctive silhouette, one more akin to the Austrian albatross I covered in my last aircraft video. There's some debate between sources on exactly why this change was made. The most common answer, however, is that it was done for better high-altitude performance. And, in fairness, the Dolphin would be quite good in that role. For now, however, let's look at the second deviation in this design, which was an attempt to give the pilot better vision. This came by putting the upper wing on the same level as the top of the fuselage, which seems like a weird design choice looking from the side. But if you move to the top, it makes more sense. In moving the wing like this, you can put it right above the cockpit. And if you put a gap in the wing, right here, you can have the pilot stick his head out over the wing. One of the bigger issues with biplanes or triplanes was the upper wing interfering with the pilot's view. This was a pretty fundamental problem, although various designs attempted to work around it. Sopwith just took a unique approach. By having the wing at the same level, it afforded excellent visibility, at least above the wings. The view down did suffer accordingly, however, due to the high position and the way the lower wing was set up. There were various attempts to rectify this, ranging from cutouts in the lower wings to a lowered rear fuselage. The latter case also featured cutouts in the cockpit side, which apparently worked well enough to be adopted. The pilots of the Dolphin did develop a healthy concern with the layout, however. There was a fear that having their heads so exposed would cause injuries or even death on crash landings. If the plane flipped over, the pilot could be crushed. This concern resulted in roll bars being fitted to the cockpit, though, as it turned out, the fear was largely unfounded. The tail of the aircraft would often keep the cockpit high enough to save the pilot, even if the plane crashed in an inverted manner. The pilots still didn't like it. In any event, this design choice did cause issues with the aircraft's center of gravity. So, to compensate, the lower wing was positioned 13 inches 330 millimeters, forward of the upper wing. From the side, this is another visually distinctive aspect of the design. It gives the wings an angled appearance, with the struts angled to match. Another interesting feature, at least on the first prototype, was a tall frontal radiator. This was abandoned by the second prototype, followed by radiators on the upper wing, a somewhat similar system to that on the Albatros D3. This was, in turn, ditched for small block radiators on either side of the forward fuselage, which had the beneficial, if probably unintentional, effect of keeping the pilot warm, being as the water pipes for the radiators were on either side of the cockpit. That mostly rounds off the unique features, with one exception. That final feature revolved around the weaponry. While not the first fighter to mount more than one machine gun, the Dolphin was one of the most heavily armed of the time. The base design had two Vickers guns mounted in the engine cowling. These were the traditional synchronized pair, firing through the propeller arc. However, the Dolphin also included a mounting for two Lewis guns on the forward crossbar of the cockpit. These had limited traverse angles to make up for the awkward positioning. It also meant that the Dolphin could carry 4 machine guns. For the Great War, that's actually a rather heavy loadout. It was also one that was often abandoned. Pilots, as a general rule, didn't like the Lewis gun mounting. They were hard to aim, and the guns could swing around into the pilot's face. There was also the same concern with crash landings, except in this case that the guns would hit the pilot and cause injuries that way. In any case, though, that rounds off the unique features. Now for a brief look at the design details. With a wingspan of 32 feet and a length of 22 feet, the Dolphin was a bit bigger than the Camel. That plane, a far more famous design, came in at 18 feet in length and a wingspan of 28 feet. The difference isn't huge, but is notable if you look at the two planes side by side. The more noticeable difference was likely the weight. The Camel weighed 930 pounds empty. The Dolphin came in at 1,400 pounds when empty, with a takeoff weight just under 2,000 pounds. For the Great War, she's a pretty hefty bird. However, with the fitting of the Hispano-Suiza 8B engine, the Dolphin made up for that. This engine could put out 200 horsepower, compared to 130 horsepower from the Camel's rotary engine. As a result, the Dolphin, despite being heavier, could manage 120 miles per hour at 13,000 feet. Even at 15,000 feet, the speed could still reach 116 miles per hour. Since I'm using the Camel as the measuring stick here, that plane could reach around 113 miles per hour. Some sources will give up to 119, although that does vary. It's not a huge difference in speed, but it's more the altitude performance that matters. And in that regard, the Dolphin could reach 21,000 feet for its service ceiling. The Camel tapped out at more like 19,000, and a couple thousand feet in that day and age did mean quite a lot. But I suppose technical details matter less than what the pilots actually think about the aircraft. So let's talk the service history now. As I said at the start, the Dolphin was developed in early 1917, with the first prototype taking to the skies on May 23, 1917. Sopwith's top test pilot, Harry Hawker, rather more famous for his own company, was at the controls. From all indications, this flight went well, as would further flight testing in both Britain and France. The Dolphin would be put through the ringer over the course of June 1917. Multiple pilots, from Hawker to Billy Bishop, evaluated the aircraft, and the general response was favorable. Or, if you prefer less dry terminology, coming from the 19th Squadron, the machine itself seems to handle perfectly at all heights, and is very stable. The view is perfect, and the machine easy to fly. 12 pilots of this squadron have flown it. They all handled it satisfactorily, and were delighted with the machine. With such glowing reviews, it's little surprise the Dolphin was ordered into production. The British ordered a total of 900 from various companies. That shows a healthy interest in the aircraft, especially with all the other fighters already in service. However, things would not prove quite so simple. While an excellent aircraft, the Dolphin's entrance to service was marred with issues. Remember the engine? This was a model in very high demand. The French Spads, the SE5, and the Dolphin all required some variant or another. This caused delays in production for both the SE5 and the Dolphin. As a result, the Dolphin only entered service in February of 1918, towards the tail end of the war, at first with number 19 and number 79 squadrons. By March, it had also joined the 87th and 23rd squadrons. While this was a late entry to combat, the Dolphin quickly earned a positive reputation. For example, in mock dogfights with the Camel, the Dolphin proved able to outturn and outperform the older fighter. In fact, it also proved capable of outperforming the SE5, itself a bit of a golden child. To quote Cecil Lewis, another ace pilot, the Dolphin had a better performance than I realized. He was up in a climbing turn and on my tail in a flash. I half rolled out of the way, he was still there. I sat in a tight climbing spiral, he sat in a tighter one. I tried to climb above him, he climbed faster. Every dodge I have ever learned, I tried on him. But he just sat there on my tail, for all the world as if I had just been towing him behind me. These are just a couple instances of the Dolphin's performance. Another example came in the high altitude performance, where the Dolphin was sent up to hunt German recon aircraft, some of which flew as high as 20,000 feet, well above most Allied aircraft's normal performance. The Dolphin, however, was quite capable of hunting them down, especially using the Lewis guns to attack from below. In action against German fighter aircraft, the Dolphin proved just as successful. There was one incident, for example, where 9 Dolphins were escorting a bomber formation. No fewer than 30 German fighters attacked. For 5 Dolphins lost, the British pilots downed 11 of the attackers. Further evidence can be seen in the kill tallies of the Dolphin squadrons. Number 87 downed 89 enemy aircraft, ironically enough. Number 79, meanwhile, downed 64. I haven't found detailed numbers for the other 2 squadrons in this regard. However, there are notable aces in this Sopwith bird. Captain Francis Gillette was the top-scoring Dolphin ace, an American pilot who earned 20 victories in the aircraft. A New Zealander, Ronald Bannerman, was the second-scoring Dolphin ace. He earned 17 victories. The third-scoring ace, Arthur Vigier, managed 14 victories in the Dolphin. There are other examples, of course, but it goes to show the success rate of this aircraft, especially considering it only served for less than a year on the front line. The Dolphin might have been more successful if not for those lingering engine problems. Remember how 900 aircraft were ordered? That actually rose to 2,072 Mark I Dolphins. However, around 1,500 of them were sitting in Britain waiting for engines when the Armistice was signed. Only a fraction of the aircraft actually saw frontline service. One can imagine how the Dolphin would be remembered had more of the aircraft actually received their engine. It reached the point that 2 different models were planned. The Dolphin Mark II was a licensed French version with a more powerful engine. This aircraft could reach 140 miles per hour and an altitude of 26,400 feet, or just over 8 kilometers. However, only a few were actually produced due to the end of the war. The Mark III, for its part, was basically the Mark I with the engine modified, specifically by removing the reduction gear. This made the engine more reliable, but it also slightly lowered the performance. This model would only fly in October of 1918, and as a result, was mostly produced by modifying the Mark Is. Not that those would last long in their own right. With the end of the war, the Dolphin also rapidly left service. By June of 1914, the 4 wartime squadrons had demobilized. The aircraft itself was declared obsolete by September of 1921. So the Dolphin had a short service career. It probably would have lasted a bit longer had the war continued, but not that much longer. Technology was rapidly evolving, and most Great War fighters were obsolete by the dawn of the 1920s. In a twist of fate, however, the Dolphin would join the Albatross in a curious post-war career. 10 of the aircraft served in Poland during the Polish-Soviet War. However, they suffered a chronic lack of spare parts, and this service was short-lived. Even shorter-lived were 2 of the aircraft loaned to the Ukrainian People's Republic. And thus the Dolphin's story came to an end. This short career means the aircraft is generally overshadowed by the far more famous Camel. A shame, really, as the Dolphin is a quite unique design, and a very capable one for its time period. This isn't helped by the fact that only 2 aircraft currently exist that I'm aware of. A composite airframe built from multiple aircraft, and a single reproduction aircraft that crashed in 1990 and is probably still undergoing restoration. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you in the next one.